Morning, everyone. Welcome to the How to Grow Your Business Processing Beyond Manitoba's Border webinar series, a guide to developing a preventative control plan webinar. This is hosted in partnership with Manitoba Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Today's webinar will provide you with a guidance on developing a preventative control plan, also known as PCP. The presentation will cover what a PCP is, who needs one, steps for preparing, implementing, and maintaining, and record keeping. For those that do not know me, I am Karen Walker, and I'm a business development specialist with Manitoba Agriculture's value-added branch. I would like to start today's webinar with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Manitoba is on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oi't, Denisilan, and the Nehethawik peoples. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Before we get started, we'll go over a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone's mic has been muted and camera off to minimize presentation interruptions. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, please enter them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, and I will make sure that they're addressed by the speaker after their presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent to all registrants next week, along with a brief survey requesting your feedback on the webinar. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce Denise Amino-Gilchrist. Denise has recently joined the Food and Beverage Manitoba team as their food safety and quality specialist. She has over 20 years of experience helping food industry members, including new startup companies, with product development, labeling requirements, writing food safety plans, standard operating procedures, and tackling food safety and quality challenges. She has also trained numerous students on good manufacturing practices, microbiology, food processing, and wastewater management in her former position as a technician and lab instructor in the Department of FHNS at the University of Manitoba. She holds a bachelor's in science and master's in science in food science from the University of Manitoba with a specialization in dairy sciences. Denise, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Karen, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So as Karen said, I'll be talking to you about developing your preventative control plan. So when I started putting this presentation together, I realized there's a lot of information here. So it's going to be condensed form. So if you do have questions, please ask at the end of the presentation. I'll also have my contact information if you would like to reach out to me at a later time. All right, so let's get started. So, just going to move my screen a little bit here. Okay, so let's start with what is a preventive control plan. So it's a written document that that indicates how hazards or risks to food products are identified, eliminated, or are being effectively controlled. And it's based on the international principles of Codex Alimentarius, the general principles of food hygiene and hazard analysis and critical control points. Those you may be familiar with already. Right. Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm having. All right, there we go. Okay, just a little bit of history about the PCP program. So this is nothing new. It's been around for a long time, and it was originally implemented mostly by federal meat and fish processors, and also the dairy and egg industry. And some of the existing programs that you may have heard of or you're currently using are the Food Safety Enhancement Program, Quality Management Program, and now we have the new PCP program that was set up by SFCR in January of 2019. So they're very similar to the other programs. So if you already have one of the other two programs, you're able to incorporate any new elements from the CF the SFCR program into them and convert them easily. Not sure why this is happening, but I'm having
So
a
Denise,
difficult
just click
time
your
trying to.
screen and you should be able to move forward with the
Yeah.
bottom. Just
Okay.
click your screen and then just try your keyboard. Or on when you click your screen on the bottom of the screen, you should
Oh,
have those
okay.
icons show up.
No, I do not.
Yeah, they're
There.
on the
Is that
far. Yeah.
better? Okay.
Uh,
So
yep.
yeah, thank you for your help. So who needs a PCP? So, well, this was covered well last week by both Gabrielle and Mady. So we don't have to get into too much in depth with this, but those who hold a SFCR license to manufacture, process, treat, preserve, grade, package, or label food for interprovincial trade are those that require it. They are required to prepare, keep, maintain, and implement a PCP program. Now, I'm finding that retailers are demanding this as well. There's more increased demand for it, even if you're just manufacturing and selling in the province. So you may be asked to have one of these as well going forward. All right. So here we go to the actual developing of the PCP. So there are several steps involved. We'll go into further details about each step in the upcoming slides, but just to go over them. So first you're going to assemble your team. Then you're going to write your procedures, perform a hazard analysis. Then you're going to assemble all your documents, implement and maintain the program. All right, first step, to assemble your team. So this requires that both management and employees work together. You need to include all people that can cover all areas of your operation, and they should understand the operation very well. So you need people that understand the process flow, the technology, and the equipment that is involved. You should have at least one of your team member that is very knowledgeable in food safety, including microbial, chemical, and physical hazards. And if there's the one person on the team that has some additional training, they can come back to the plant and train the rest of the employees or operators. And someone that has good knowledge on HACCP principles and techniques as well. So your management should demonstrate commitment to the PCP by the following. These are good ways for them to do this: by providing the necessary resources and time required to effectively develop, implement, and maintain the PCP program. Provide employees some training to do the work, and verify the competencies of the staff in the areas that they're responsible for. It's also very important that there's good communication, that management communicates to employees the importance of the PCP and how to report any problems, because you don't want them to be uncomfortable to come back with an issue that came up and that they just don't tell you about it. So you should stress the importance of the program and show by your example yourself, right? More on that. So management should also allow the designate to enforce compliance of the procedures in the PCP program. So it doesn't help if you're not letting your managers enforce wearing hair nets or beard nets and whatnot. So they have to give them that responsibility and allow them to do it. Ensure that all documents related to the PCPs are accessible to the staff and CFIA. So it's not good if your program is locked away in someone's office. They have to have access to these documents and the procedures so they can actually implement them and work with them. Continuous improvement of the PCP to ensure its effectiveness is also good. So there's always changes in regulation, and even when you're bringing new equipment, things change all the time. So you have to make sure you're on top of the program to make sure you update everything. And also staff will leave, right? So you have to make sure that's being updated. So step 2, we're moving on to the written procedures. And this is probably the longest step, like the with the most steps. So you're going to write procedures to address all the elements of the PCP. And these elements are outlined in the Safe Food for Canadian Regulations Act. So you can find them all there, and you go step by step. So these are going to include your written procedures. They're going to include policies. You're going to have procedures such as standard operating procedures or sanitation operating procedures. You're going to have records. So you're going to have to prepare documents and forms. And as they say, if there's no record of it, it hasn't been done. So your inspector or your third-party auditor, they want to see these the records are being filled to show that you are doing them. Right. So written procedures, we'll continue on with that. So the structure of the PCP must include a description of each of the elements. And in that, you're going to make sure that you have who, the person carrying out the task. You want to know what the description of the task, what is being done, how, details of how it's carried out, monitored and verified, and the frequency. So is it being done daily, weekly, monthly, annually? You have to make sure that this is in the schedule. The elements, which are outlined in the regulations, are very similar to the old prerequisite programs that are done for HACCP. So it's just organized differently, really. So you have the different elements, and we'll go through these in more detail as well. So first of all, you got your process control, commitment, sanitation and pest control, conveyance and equipment, premises, storage, transportation and storage, employee training, and complaint and recall. Right. Starting with process control. So policies and procedures to describe how you select your ingredients, packaging and label suppliers. You have to have a detailed process for that. What do you require? Do you require the suppliers to have a certificate of analysis? Maybe you have microbial, chemical, or physical limits on the ingredients. Control measures you have to talk about the control measures you have in place for monitoring the temperature of incoming ingredients. Also talk about how you might process or treat your foods at this point. Traceability is important. You have to describe how you're managing the lots of all the inputs and your finished products so you can trace everything back. And labeling is important because you have to make sure that you're reviewing your labels regularly, and you have to make sure that it's complying with the regulations. And allergen control, of course. How do you manage your allergens that are coming into your plant? How do you store them? And you have to have a policy on that allergen control. Right. Commitment. Now, this is a step that many people forget, including myself. I have in a few times as well. So you should have a policy, including a statement that describes management's commitment to producing safe food that meets regulatory requirements. And this must be signed by management or by the business owner. So I've had this happen to me before where where's your policy for your commitment? And I'm like, oh, so that's something I want to highlight because it's often forgotten. So a good example of this, and I've seen this kind of example before. So you have a statement like this: our management is fully committed to producing safe food by implementing stringent quality control measures, adhering to all food safety regulations, and the continuous improvement of our system. We prioritize, pardon me, the health and well-being of our consumers to ensure that our processes are regularly reviewed and updated to meet the highest standards of safety and quality. So then you would have a signature from the manager and they would date it, and then you could show this to your inspector or auditor. Sanitation and pest control, another big element. So here you want to describe how the establishment, conveyance and equipment are cleaned and sanitized. You want to be quite detailed here. You want a list of approved chemicals used for cleaning and sanitation. You want to prepare a cleaning schedule. So some things will be cleaned daily during your operation. If you're using equipment, it certainly will be cleaned every time you operate, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So you can prepare that. You want to write standard operating procedures for cleaning and sanitizing. So that will include cleaning the environment, so non-food contact surfaces. You like floors, walls, ceilings, those such things. Then you want to have a procedure for equipment, for cleaning the equipment, utensils, tables, food contact surfaces. And you want to include in those procedures chemical concentrations that need to be used and the temperature requirements based on the manufacturer's instructions. So it's important to follow those instructions because those have been validated. So if you need to clean at use temperature, the water temperature has to be 75 degrees C, then it's important to follow that and to monitor that you are using that. And if you decide to change the procedure, then you have to validate it yourself that it is indeed working for you. You do some environmental swabbing and whatnot. So indicate the type of cleaning that you're doing as well. So whether it's manual or CIP. So CIP, for those of you that might not be familiar, it's called clean in place. And the manual, you can also include the types of brushes and different equipment that you would need for cleaning. That has to all be well labeled and identified. You want to refer to written procedures for the disassemble and assemble of equipment, and that would be written in your equipment program, but you want to refer to that because some of the equipment will have to be disassembled to be properly cleaned. So you have to clean the gaskets and every piece of the equipment properly. All right. Okay, so in terms of pest control, you want to describe the pest management program that you have in place. So do you use a pest control service company or do you monitor yourself? And I've seen both. Most people will have a pest control company to do it, but the smaller ones could do it themselves. They just have to make sure that they're following their schedule and they're checking all traps and whatnot. So you're going to provide detail about who is carrying out the service and how often. It's important. Have a schematic diagram of the facility indicating where the numbered traps are. So you should number your traps and you should know where they're located, both for rodent and if you have any for insects as well. You're going to verify reports if it's a service that's supplying it for you. You're going to look at their reports, verify that they're doing it, and do the visual check on the traps to ensure that they are being monitored. There's not all services are equal. So some, depends on the employee, they might miss traps. So a good way to do it too is you could always put something in one of the traps one time to see that if they're really testing it, you could, not suggesting to put a rodent, but a note or something just to bring it to you if they find it. So that's a good way to do a verification, right? Moving on to equipment and conveyance. So here you're going to list all the equipment and conveyance used in your plant. So you're going to show how they meet the requirements for their design, build, material, construction, and ease of cleaning. So they have to have the right stainless steel or whatnot. You're going to describe how they are maintained to ensure food processing is done safely. You're going to write SOPs for the assemble and disassemble of the equipment, maintenance, and calibration procedures. So some of the equipment, you'll have to calibrate it, and it'll have to be done on a schedule. So if you're using anything with a thermometer, ovens, or any kind of kettles, pasteurizers, they have to be, their thermometers have to be calibrated with certified thermometers, and that has to be done regularly. Same with balances. If you have balances, you're going to have to make sure that you're calibrating it with certified weights to make sure that they are indeed the weight they're recording. You're going to describe the ingredient, process, and employee flow through the facility. So what I mean by this is how the ingredient, where the ingredient is flowing from raw product to the mixing stages, all the way to the finished product. And same with the process and employee flow. You don't want employees going from back and forth from raw area to a finished product area without some kind of procedures or policies. So in some cases, you want to make sure that they're changing their smocks or their footwear. And other cases, maybe if you're large enough, then they're designated to one area and they don't move around. So something to take to consider. Premises. This is another large area. So you're going to describe how the exterior of the first the exterior of the building. So how is it maintained? Where is it located? So is it located near potential sources of contamination? For example, we're seeing more and more of dairy. For example, my specialty is dairy, so I'll usually use that as an example. But dairy producers or farmers, they're wanting to build their own facility on their farms. So, extra care needs to be taken that it's not located too close to the barn, or it's in, a safe location. So you have to take measures to eliminate any risks. So that's one. Others is maybe you're in an industrial area. You have to make sure that there's nothing near you that could potentially cause hazard to your product, right? And you want to maintain the grounds because greenery, shrubs, or vines, they can attract insects, rodents. So you have to make sure you're maintaining the grounds outside as well. Inside, so it should be designed, constructed, and maintained for the activity being conducted, right? So the floors, walls, ceiling, window, and doors should be smooth. They should be non-absorbent. Floors should permit good draining. Last week, the CFIA was telling us that there's not a minimum number of drains that are required anymore. They used to be very detailed about that kind of thing, and now it's up to the operator to just to make sure that it's properly designed and that you don't have your pooling of water. So as long as you can see that, then it should be good. And materials should be durable and suitable for their intended use. You don't want to use just any type of material for your flooring. It has to be food approved and food grade approved. It should be capable of withstanding repeated cleaning and sanitation. And you see this, like those floors, they really get a beating when you're using all that sanitizer in there. You can see if it's not good materials, the floor starts to lift and whatnot. And the plant should be in good repair. So you shouldn't see peeling paint on the walls or big cracks in your floors, because that could be, could harbor listeria or other bacteria that are a hazard to your food. And yeah, so they should be in good repair. And condensation is another big one I've seen. So if it's humid or there's not good ventilation, sometimes you have condensation on the ceiling, which could drip into your vats or into your food. So you don't want that either. Okay. Movement must not present a risk to contamination. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. You have to control the movement from raw to finished product. Some people will use physical or other means of separating incompatible activities to prevent contamination. So if you have raw meat, you don't want it to be right next to your finished cooked meat or pasteurized milk and raw milk or such things as that. You should make sure that you have very good lighting in your facility, good ventilation, temperature and humidity control. And you got to describe how waste is removed in your plant. Is it removed daily at the end of the day? You got lots of waste, maybe it's being removed more than once, and who's doing it? You need a good cleaning station with a 3-compartment sink, for cleaning, for manual cleaning, hand washing station and sanitation station. So it has to be appropriate for the size of your plant and the number of employees you have. So if you have 50 people in your plant, one station is not going to be very effective, because what's going to happen, you're going to have some lineup, and then you're going to have some employee that's worried about getting to their workstation, and they're just going to cut right through the line and not bother washing their hands. So you have to make sure you have the appropriate amount for the amount of employees you have. So if you only have 5 employees, then maybe 1 station is plenty, but you have to assess that, you know, make sure it's right. And also you have to have lavatory, office, change rooms, and lunch rooms, you know, identified and clearly separated and maintained. So premises also includes water. So you want to have potable water, and any water that's being used for the process should be tested. Well, your water should be tested if you're using it for cleaning as well. So you should be testing that, and they recommend like once a month to test it. Also same with similar to steam and ice, that should be tested if you're using this for your process, and any other types of treatments that apply. So if you're using the you know, City Winnipeg water, chances are it's going to be a good source, but it could be different if you have well water. So you have to take these into consideration if you're using any water softening treatments or whatnot. Right. This brings us to transportation and storage. So here you want to describe how your food ingredients, packaging, food, if you have food animals that you're receiving, your abattoir, and chemicals are received and stored. So that has to be detailed. How is the final product shipped? That should be also included in your program. So you want to describe control measures for temperature and humidity, for food at receiving, shipping, and storage. So you're gonna monitor these. So you know, you might have some check sheets for that, or control charts. How you inspect for trailers, tanks, pallets, trucks before unloading and loading, and so that has to be, you know, described. And is a trailer clean? If someone is coming in with your ingredients, you want to make sure that it's clean, or even if you're shipping your product, and you want to make sure that there's no incompatibilities. So funny story for you guys. This is one of the first jobs I had when I graduated with my food science degree. I was working for a bread company and at a depot, and I would inspect the trailers, and sometimes you found all kinds of stuff in there. So you had to really check them and make sure they were clean before you sent your product out, right? So moving on to training your employees. So you want to describe the competencies and qualification of your employees involved in the manufacturing, storage, packaging, labeling of food. Training should include your good manufacturing practices, hygienic practices. Everybody should really have this training in the plant. Cleaning and sanitation, that might be just given to the staff or the operators that are doing that are responsible for cleaning and sanitation. Or if it's a smaller plant, often we wear many hats and we do everything, so we should receive all the training. There's some technical training that needs to be done too, especially for those that are working with some of the equipment that is very technical. Like if you're a pasteurizer, you should receive the proper training for pasteurization, or if you're using any dryers or large equipment, right? You should have some training on the Preventive Control Program and HACCP. So this could be given to one person in the plant. They could get more formal training and then train the rest of the plant, or everybody gets the formal training. That's up to your plant. And proper documentation. So here I find a lot of errors are made. So we should train our employees or operators on how to properly document things, because too often you find that they just scribble something out and then put something in. The correct way would be to stroke it and then like put a line across and then initial the mistake and write the correct input. Also, what I see often is someone will put a date if they're shipping, for example, shipping and receiving. This is classic. So they'll put the date And then they'll put the products that were shipped and their name. But then for the date, because it's all on the same date that they're shipping, they'll just put a line through it across, because they don't want to put the date on every in every box. But that would be wrong. Inspectors do not accept that, and they don't like that, or neither do a third-party auditors. Right? So then you'll describe how the competencies are evaluated and maintained. So for larger plants, you might have quizzes after your training. For smaller ones, you might just do like interviews with employees and ask them questions about their responsibilities. You should include refresher training. So every year, there should be a minimum of once a year, there should be some refresher training on the modules that they're responsible for. So the frequency is annually, but you can certainly do it more often, or if there's any issues, then it could be retrained. Employee health, there should be a policy on that. So policies and procedures regarding illnesses transmitted through food handling should be covered. It's important. And also how to deal with cuts and lesions on hands, and how to report these to the supervisor's staff. So you want to make sure that it's clear that if you're sick, that you stay home, or if it's like a lingering sickness, maybe then you're just removed from the area with food contact for a few days until you feel better, and then you're brought back in. All right. Complaints and recall. So here you want to describe how food found to be a potential risk to human health or injury will be identified, investigated, and controlled. So how are the complaints received at your plant? How are they documented, and how do you follow up? So you have to be clear on that. And what steps are involved in initiating a recall? So you have to have the exact steps there. Who do you call first? Who's notified? Who's part of the recall team? And what are their roles? What does everybody do? Is someone responsible for notifying CFIA, or calling the retailers to take inventory on the product that's affected? How do you test your recall program? So you're expected to test it once a year. So a good plan would be to have maybe someone even from the admin team pick a lot number, and make up a story that there's glass found in a product or anything. And then you start the timer and you figure out exactly how long it takes you to reconcile the product. So to do that, you're going to use your documentation, your shipping records, and they can be electronic, but they can be also paper form. And you're going to have to trace back, everything, and determine how long it takes you to figure out where all that product was. And sometimes you have some in the storage too, so you can't ignore the fact that you might have some right in your location, right? All right, moving on to hazard analysis. So this is also included. You have to perform a hazard analysis by using the following steps or a HACCP form. So you can use the classic HACCP forms, and that works very well. Otherwise, you can just follow these steps to identify all the potential food safety hazards for inputs and processes. So you're going to look at biological, chemical, and physical hazards that might be associated with your ingredients or your product. Determine control measures for each. And are any of the control measures critical control points? That's important, because if there's critical control points in your plant, usually these are like heating steps where you're eliminating a hazard. Then you want to establish clear critical limits for those control points. So they'll include time and temperatures of cooking or processing, and you're going to want to validate the critical limits as well. So you go through all that. All right. Procedures for monitoring control measures and records of these activities. You're going to want procedures for corrective actions if deviations occur, and you want to keep records of that too. You're also going to want verification procedures to show that your PCP is effective, and record all these activities as well. All right. Step 4, now you're going to assemble all your documents, prepare everything before your potential inspection or audit. This is given that maybe you haven't had an audit before an inspection. So you're going to organize all the documents, and you're going to have policies. You're going to have all those procedures, SSOPs and SOPs, your HACCP forms, and all the forms like check sheets that you might have, shipping documents, and they can be electronic or they can also be a paper format. Depends on your plant. All right. Did I skip one? Yes. No, okay, that's good. Moving on. Okay, and now we're on to implementing and maintaining your PCPs. So once you have the plan, you have to implement it. It's good to have it all documented, but if you're not implementing it, it's really no use. So you have to make sure your staff is trained on all the procedures that they need, that they're responsible for, and how to properly fill out the forms or documents. You need to generate and maintain these records, and records should be maintained or kept for a period of 2 years. A good rule of thumb too is you can keep it for a year after it's like up until its best before date, and then a year after that, or 2 years after that. That's a good rule of thumb too. You want to verify that the PCP is functioning properly. So review and revise the plan as needed and according to the appropriate frequencies for your operation. And management must be involved in the review process. This is should be emphasized. All right, now just to summarize everything, that was a lot. I know that was a lot of information that I covered in a short presentation, but so just to review everything. So we need to assemble a team with management support, written procedures that address all the elements, and those elements can be found in the regulations. So, and for that, you need to have your policies, procedures, hazard analysis, and documents all ready. And you need to implement and maintain the PCP program. Now, does anybody have any questions? I'd love to answer, or hope I can answer them for you.
Denise, we have a couple in the chat. One question is, can you provide examples of companies that have successfully implemented a PCP and the benefits they have seen?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, sure.
That have successfully completed.
Implemented a
Yeah.
PCP and the benefits they have seen.
Oh yeah, there's numerous companies that have the PCP program in place here in Manitoba. I don't know if there's quite a few of them, but the benefits, I don't know if I want to start identifying them all just for privacy reasons, but the benefits is that they can get into retail stores and they can sell their product outside the province. So those are big benefits. Most retailers, the big ones like Sobeys and the Costco's and that, they all require some type of program. So you can't get into them without the program.
Thank you. Another question is, what is the difference between PCPs and HACCP?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So PCP is the Preventative Control Program. So it's the whole program. And then HACCP is one part of that program. It's incorporated in that program. So there's many different types of food safety programs. PCP is one type, and that's what CFIA has implemented. But there's also the GFSI schematics, like you may have heard of BRCGS or SQF. So those are two other examples. So there's different ones, and they all kind of address the same thing with maybe a few different elements added to them. So it's usually, if you have one, it's pretty easy to adapted to another scheme. I hope that answers the
So
question.
so for us as Canadians working with CFIA, would a HACCP still be a standalone, or would it always fall into this PCP now?
You need both. You need the PCPs are, you know what, the PCPs are a good equivalence to what we used to call the prerequisite programs. So you need your prerequisite program and your HACCP in your food safety plan. So you can't just have HACCP. You need both. You need those. You need the prerequisite programs or PCPs in addition to just HACCP.
Okay, thank you. Another one. Hi, Denise. Thank you for a very informative presentation. What would you estimate a reasonable timeline would be for developing and implementing a PCP from scratch for a new food manufacturing SME?
Well, it depends on the operation, right? How many lines and how many products you're manufacturing. I would give it at least 3 months minimum. And that's
Okay.
being really you know, ambitious.
And do you offer assistance, or where can people go if they're looking for some help in getting started with a PCP or completing a PCP
Yes,
schedule?
correct. I do. This is one of the services that I do offer with Food and Beverage Manitoba, helping companies with their HACCP plans or their PCP plan, or the various different food safety programs.
Thank you. Last call. Is there any more questions of Denise? With that, I'd like to say thank you, Denise, for a great presentation and providing us with a valuable guidance on how to prepare, implement, and maintain a preventative control plan.